knew it would help the cause. So I'm not, it's an argument that I remember reading a long time ago, so I just wondered what people thought.
Because it was very, but one last point I want to make, this will be of some help. This argument, what I am saying about negation, has some links with Azerbaijans concept of negative difference. It's negatively defined. It's some way better positively defined.
I will give to K.C. Pandey in a minute. I just want to ask Ashish if you want to respond to this. It's a complaint made not only by you here but by others today that there's a lack of alternative visions. That we have one dominant vision and too few others. And I wonder whether it is not an obvious strength of a liberal consumerist democracy that it claims to contain in itself and gets a lot of attraction from the promise that this is the maximally plural utopia. If you look at Amartya Sen's defense of market liberalism, that is what he says, that when we give people money, we give people capacities, and that's his larger Amartya Sen. Now the capacities which we need the engines of industrial civilization to give all these capacities. When people have these capacities, then all kinds of lives and utopias and possibilities will flower. So this is pluralism. If at any time there was a plural utopia, it is the utopia of liberal consumerist democracy. So that's the reason for its success, the very plurality of it. So I'm a bit devil's advocate here, but we have to understand the moral energy, the great moral promise of the thing that has been questioned here. If you want to comment, you're free to do so, but then otherwise, K.C. Pandey, and then Dhirubhai is next.
Good.
Just brief 3 points. Number one, I don't think that your critique of Pradeep ji is something which is very much criticizing Pradeep ji, because Pradeep ji has altogether different approach to Lincoln and Gandhi, and I think that what is very bad thing about Indian academic is that if you criticize someone, then it amounts to as if you are disrespecting the person. So this is from our personal life. I have seen that whatsoever book reviews I have done, the author has become something unhappy with me. So this is personal life. I mean, this is unacademic, which is happening in academics in India. And I suppose that Pradeep ji has something very important to say. And but I don't like his one point, that is Amartya Sen doesn't know Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, because to say like this, you need to put many arguments. But my saying that I don't like...
does not know.
No. My saying that he doesn't know is not absolutistic, should not be taken in absolute sense, because he's going to reply to my email and I'll get points from him. Anyway, this was the first point. Now, sir, I wanted to ask from you, this Mimamsaka never allowed contextualization of text, because Mimamsaka, so far I know, being from a philosophy discipline, and Mimamsaka basically approach was that Vedas, Vedic texts, they are aparusaya and not written by anyone. I suppose that you are referring to that. But that doesn't mean that any interpretation of Vedic texts is without author. I suppose this is my first point. I need you without any author. I mean, interpretation have some authors, I suppose, because the Vedic Mimamsakas presuppose that Vedic Vedas are aparusaya, that is not written by a particular person, but they are seers. Basically, they realized the reality, and they are unwritten form, in the form of richas. I mean, mantras. They were in the world, universe. So this was the first point I wanted to know from you, sir. The second point, I was just wondering your interpretation of Gandhi and Kumaraswamy about this. They have like what something villages. Their utopia is between village and city. I don't know. This is my humble request to you, sir, that you'll highlight on this point that they are not talking about village nation, which is independent. So far, I read Gandhi. They are talking about village which is sufficient. I mean, independent. I mean, sufficient in everything, and anarchist Gandhi. And I think I learned from you something. So this was this, and again, one more point I would like to ask, and this opportunity, first time I'm meeting you. So I would like to this thing that apart from Marx, Freud, and Gandhi, not only three, I suppose, interpretations on the word have been done. Wittgenstein, I mean, so many interpretations of Wittgenstein I would like to, I mean, highlight here.
There are others.
Yes, others.
I don't
Just
like
few
it's prototypical, paradigmatic, if you like, or economic text.
Dhirubhai.
A short comment on Nicholas's excellent presentation. But before that, a footnote about what was going on, and that is utopia of pluralism. I think, I mean, in the context of this truth, if you like, or other thing, we have been celebrating plurality, and rightly so. And it is almost natural state of being. But plurality is not possible to preserve and cherish and celebrate unless there is recognition of a harmonizing force of truth. So harmony is, I mean, the idea or utopian idea of plurality without idea of harmony, I find it very problematic. It's not about homogenization, but the idea of harmony is now so outdated, I suppose, and so very Gandhian, probably. So that plurality we would rather have our utopia to drift to conflicts of plurality than to have force of harmonization. I mean, I would say so. That needs to be, I mean, that's as far as I think Nicholas had a very, very interesting dilemma that he raised about cognitive capacity and religion, truth and cognitive capacity. And here, and the example he gave at the traffic light, children bathing in rags, and it's so moving that one would like to devote one's life right there. It's absolutely Gandhian response, if you like, that to change the life or something. But most of us are quite, what you may call, don't have that courage to put life at stake. But that's not the issue. I mean, as I see it, and which I would like to relate to the satisfaction expressed by Thomas about validation. I think one important dimension that comes here, in terms of the truth between cognitive capacity and religion, that Gandhi tries to sort of elaborate, and which by and large in Western thinking is considered a problem or patronizing, and I don't know what, including the Freudian law, and that is identification. I think how to place or how to situate the idea of identification with the other. Could be victim or because identification is seen, I suppose, philosophically as patronizing, as something where you start, I mean, but in Gandhi, I think if you talk of validation of truth, I think identification comes as the most important aspect of validation.
And they will others.
Huh?
Whether it allows you to identify with others.
Whether you identify, not sympathize.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, identification has to be seen not as sympathy, not as sharing, but which is a developed concept in transference, this how not to identify is considered to be the mode of respecting the others. I don't know.
Yes,
Don't know.
Are not to be moved by transference.
Huh? Yeah.
As the other
Yeah.
way
But
around.
here, in the tradition, we are talking about Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. I mean, and his capacity to identify. Now, what is, I think this is again under theorized, that we need to reinvent identification as a mode of
Politics.
truth and justice. Because identification has levels. It's not just Eastern identification, but it's levels of how do you feel pain? It's not suffering issue. How do you feel pain? Or is it necessary to feel pain of the other or not? That's the issue. And this is all there in our Dalit discourse also. People are very unhappy about Dalits not really recognizing how well you think of them. They always say, but you cannot understand our pain. I think there is something there. There is irreducibility of experience after a point, whatever you do, which cannot be overcome unless you identify. And that needs to be developed into a discourse, into a kind of understanding, into ultimately also, I always prefer to talk also in terms of policies and programs, whether identification is something offensive or it is something which is humanizing experience in terms of fact.
So Phil, I see, okay, we go this way first and then we come back to Jonathan Phil, so please, where's yours?
Mr. Nandi pointed out several examples where he said there were many people who started and following and reading Gandhi only after they were called Gandhi. And then later on you went on to say, sir, that we can have a tailor-made or a customized form of Gandhi for our own purpose. So very humbly, I would like to request you, can you highlight on this point that, do you think that, are you suggesting in a sense that the original Gandhi has become irrelevant for us in this present plural society, or do we need, that's why we need some customized form of Gandhi?
No, I was trying to draw attention to the fact that there have already been customization. The Indian state's Gandhi today is not what Indian state's Gandhi was only 30 years ago. No, I can give you many instances of this. I don't think we have enough time for giving specific instances, but there will be no illusion about it. That this Gandhi of the Indian state has much less relevance to politics. He has been depoliticized. He has been turned into a non-insurrectionist, non-rebellious Gandhi with saintly pretensions, fit to be put on the pedestal at India Gate. Instead of King George V, you have Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. They will be delighted.
And his name is also used on Mobla pens.
Huh?
And his name is also used for Mobla pens.
Yes. So that is it's very clear. So, but you see, sometimes that opportunity he gives you, that to insist on another Gandhi. Nobody can take away that right from us. So that is also a part of the story. And in this instance, I will say, Dhirubhai, on the whole, I am sympathetic, though I don't think harmony is the right word, but in some cases, we have to actually sharpen the contradiction. Sharpen the contradiction as a tool of resistance.
That we have done enough.
No. Yes, I think we have done. I'm not
The
denying
problem is not that.
the secondly, I want to also point out that there is a problem of universalizing, sorry, problem of pluralizing the universal. The universal is always singular. The local, the relative are relativistic. Whatever is plural is relativistic. The singular has to be universal, has to be singular. And I think that is a dangerous concept. I think we must learn to live with plural concept.
Every signal plurality is a partial life.
Pardon me?
It's a partial life. I mean, there is a violence involved in non-recognition of plurality. There is no doubt about it. You must allow people to be, no doubt about it. But at the same time, to nurture plurality, I think that was India's caste society. Non-conflictual, plural, everyone stewing in its own soup. That's one plurality. But one has got to counterpose dialectically processes where pluralities also voluntarily, experientially, may merge, may create new pluralities, may do something else. But because this celebration of plurality is celebration of stagnancy and separations. So harmonizing may not be the right word, but I think natural social processes, allowing interactions, change, allowing redefinition of sense. All this has been arrested in this in this very stagnant ideological view of pluralism. I mean, that's the point.
Can we get to Thomas Pantam or what I short note?
No, I thought of making a remark in a very lighter way when you said that when people started calling some people Gandhi, they started reading Gandhi, and we have experience of people who have the name Gandhi but never read Gandhi.
So Thomas Pantam, you can't claim that fame.
Thank you. It's always a learning experience to read or listen to Ashish. So I am Ashish. I want to enter into this brief exchange between my two very esteemed friends Ashish and Dhirubhai. I think Ashish, you are making a case for a plural vision of a good society, but at the same time, you are against overconsumption, more overconsumption definition of the good society you are against. You don't want tobacco, you don't want too much of sugar, so on. Okay, now my point is this. This plural vision of good society, there is a little problem with it, which I see. You also mentioned about Isaiah Berlin and negative liberty. This is, as I say it, Ashish, this is all in terms of the language of rights. I should have my right. My question to you is, suppose we bring in the notion of human obligations in addition to human rights, but we bring in the idea of human obligations which may or may not correspond to human rights. There may be some obligations which I have as a human being, either as a father or as a mother, which is not a reciprocal thing to some right. Now, what I am going to ask you is, the way I brought in the idea of justice. I mean, see, the mainstream liberal political theory has a framework of an order of the distribution, lexical priority, somebody calls it. A lexical priority in the distribution of rights. Which right should be first, and when it is lexically over, then you go on to the next distribution of rights, and when that is also lexically completed, then you go to the third distributive rights, differential rights, and differential justice, and so on. Now, those theories say that once this paternal distribution of rights is okay, then in the first right you can have this vision of good life and so on. And my submission to you is, suppose we take a position and not start with this schema of rights distribution, but schema of a universalizable minimal human obligations. And we fix on that. And minimally, not maximally, minimally certain human obligations have to be respected. Within that, you may or you may not have your plural vision of the good life. How do you react to that? For example, I think somebody in the previous discussion said that what is legitimate is what does not cause harm, what does not kill, what is not a cause for killing of the other. That's okay. Beyond that, you can do. So, can we think of that one, or would that be also, a regimented society where certain minimal human obligations are, or is it difficult?
No, I think the way you put it, it seems to be very convincing. I will like it to be seriously considered, and perhaps it does share something with some of our traditional concept of what we don't call rights. I don't want to call right, but duties.
Sadharana dharma.
Codes of ethical codes of dharma. Yes.
Why I ask this is, these systems of states, societies which are organized, they can go scot-free and do bombarding. Now we can watch it on the TV. Iraq war, for example. Now, if you take a minimal notion of a human obligation, it is condemnable. You can't do that. You can take military action, but you can't bombard and kill children, mothers. They are not combatants. Now, what is there to condemn in our theory? We are philosophers, theorists, and so on. It's a plural vision of society. But we have to say, and Gandhi did say that, such actions are not permissible. Say what he did. What good is served by that? What good is served by bombarding and destroying their people, whatever they have built, which we could see in the recent 2 wars. Is there something in our theoretical resources, in our philosophical resources? No, this is not acceptable. This is not legitimate. There is no moral justification for this. It's not political. It's moral. I think Ajay Singh Mehta, I think you wrote in some of your past remarks about the ethicality of the exercise of power. I think I was stimulated by that from this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just on that, I think I agree with the idea about obligations, but 2 things struck me. One is with regards to the last comment about the Iraq war. The Liberals would just respond and say, well, under international law it was illegal. That they do have the resources for condemning the Iraq war. Those resources have been enshrined in international law. It's just that nobody's willing to take on the might of the USA and drag George Bush to The Hague. But I agree with the point about obligations, but again, there's an obvious problem with selling that is the power of liberalism. It tells everybody they can be free, they're going to have their freedom maximised. If you start talking about obligations, you start talking about impositions on people's freedom, and that's a lot more difficult to sell. And arguably the power of liberalism as an ideology has been sold on the back of we're going to maximise all your freedoms, even though in reality it doesn't work out that way. And I think, so with regards to the point about universalism or universalist ideas being difficult, I think it's because they're still couched in sort of crude modernist terms, and I'm sort of thinking about the sort of the still artistic movement and things where, universalism was symbolised through abstraction, so you had geometric lines, and that's still there in liberal political theory, that universalism is achieved through abstracting the person from everything that makes them a person. So, by the time you occupy the original position behind the veil of ignorance in Rawls, you're no longer anything that is worth calling a person, right? So, by aiming for universalism, you get rid of everything that makes us human and gives us fulfilling lives. So if we think differently, and I think if we think more in a sort of neo-Aristotelian way, where we bring that together with ideas of deliberative fora, and we have deliberative fora where we discuss conceptions of the good life, etc., and have some plurality built around those sorts of ideas, where we bring back in the conception of the good, rather than pretending we don't have one like liberal political philosophers do, then I think we'll have a better stab at some meaningful sort of universalism. But actually my question was to Nicholas, which was this distinction between cognitive and moral. So I think the distinction, as you laid it out, was good, but I think not put in those terms. So I think what you talked about under cognitive was epistemological problems of complexity and distancing, right? So in terms of, the crimes we're perpetrating when we purchase certain products in a supermarket in the USA or the UK or Finland, one of the the epistemological problem we face there is just not knowing the chain, as it were, not knowing what Coca-Cola are doing in certain states, etc. And the reason why I'd resist calling that a cognitive problem is because if you call it a cognitive problem, you're buying into an externalist picture of ethics. And I would want to argue for an internalist where, moral judgment has internal to it, is cognitive. So one's viewing of the world has internal to it one's moral judgment about the world. So I wouldn't want to separate out cognitive and moral in that way. So I would differentiate between the epistemological problems of complexity and moral distancing from moral problems. And I think you could do exactly the same work, but with that as a distinction rather than differentiating between cognitive and moral, because that implies that it implies non-cognitivism in ethics and externalism. And moral problems then might be problems of acknowledging the humanity of others in a sort of Cavelian sense.
Okay, just a quick response. I'm not really sure what I wanted to mean is rather, I agree that to make these issues exclusively questions about knowledge as an epistemological question, then that's there, and that's a problem, and then I think you reduce the idea of morality to a question about knowledge in that sense. But I think my point was more to say that there is not to say that that it's completely clear to me that when I meet the poorest of the poor and I have this impulse or kind of it's kind of a like a scream in myself that something should be done. I don't want to say that that there's nothing cognitive in the sense of thinking and trying to understand a larger complexity. That will be there, and I think I don't have any clarity in the sense of how really to relate to that. But I'm just saying that I think that utilitarian ethics and an ethics which takes the question about morality as a question about how to calculate, how to understand what could be made as the greatest good is a suppression or maybe a repression of just as that instance when you meet and then you translate. That's a hard thing to somehow meet and to keep up. That kind of maybe that this has something to do with what Vijay said about keeping the I don't remember what terms he used, but there's a certain kind of this more moral kind of impulse to really love and take care of other person, and the other part being kind of somehow to really understand how to place yourself in position and that and the larger context which are there. So in that, this is very primitive, very very basic and primitive kind of way. I just wanted to kind of see how I would start to think about Gandhi and the relation between ethics of religion and politics. So that's, you know.
Let me just check. I also want to just follow up on this point, Niklas, the example of the beggar in the street, and as an example of a kind of encounter which we'll recognize. We have been in that spot, and we can understand the reaction that, and I think it would be strange if not all in this room would have had that reaction, that there's a necessity to get out of the rickshaw and sort of give your life to this person. I mean, this thing is there. I just wonder whether this is a false understanding, or whether because it seemed you said that the moment a utilitarian calculus enters, then the ethical moment is gone. And I would just I think of a person some of you know who I would be ready to describe in terms that this is a person who has got out of the rickshaw and is giving her life to this beggar, and that person is involved in promoting some kind of social democratic neoliberal policies with a social democratic face across the world in order to save the dignity and the well-being of this one person in the street. And that's the only reason this person is pursuing this career, big career, and in which utility calculus is one of the tools you use as you realize your burning need to serve this beggar in the street. So I think in this sense, there's in order to preserve. I mean, I think many people, in order to preserve that very moment, that very decisive ethical moment, you become somebody who engages in neoliberal reform and tries to tinker with it so that it will be serving the last person better and so on. So I just wonder what I have understood or not understood in your in your example. Do you want to comment on this?
Well, I agree completely but I would say that, it's not clear to me to what extent, at least it feels to me that I need to understand this person and what goes into that energy more. But I can't say on this spot that it wouldn't be. This is my whole problem, how to relate to the whole process of modernization.
What is modernization?
Yeah, because it's not, I can't be, the judge of this. It's just more that, but this was maybe more a primitive kind of example of to keep alive this, relation between ethics and politics. But then I think it needs to be, to the extent then that would be there as a motivation for this your friend. Then it needs to, I think, at least the ethics should be there somehow, maybe stronger in the whole discourse of what politics is and what is done. That's then the next step and question, so or next level of considerations.
Fine. Yes, we have a. Let me just say the list I have. Joe, yeah. Okay. So, of course.
Would you like
I have
money to beggar?
Would I would like to give money to beggar? I don't know what the right thing to do is. I'm completely. I have no idea.
Joel and Osha have been patiently waiting. You're not leaving?
No.
So can you, if Joel is on the list before you, is that all right?
2 months.
Yes. Yes. So good. Yeah. So Joel, you are next, please.
Thanks. I was wondering, it's been said both, I think, that somehow the problem for, let's say, for us here, or generally, is that there's no positive vision of an alternative, whereas the critique maybe of the present system that is offered, that would be, as it were, good enough. or maybe penetrating and so on. But what we lack is a positive vision. And then Thomas, on the other hand, said that we need to understand the tremendous moral force or something like that of the ideal that neoliberalism, neoliberal development is offering of this. So, is anyone listening?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. So I was wondering whether that's quite true. I mean, isn't it? I mean, there's all kinds of critical things you can say, of course, about how the ways in which the present system is destructive. But I wonder whether I think there's not at all a very good analysis of why the sense in which it's tempting. And I wouldn't at all go along with Thomas and say that there's some tremendous. I mean, there's a lot of force in it, but the sort of promise that this consumerist life gives is, I mean, it's completely destructive in itself already, not at all only in its consequences. But I mean, think of, for instance, I mean, the whole way, the kind of fascination that new products hold. I mean, it seems to me quite obvious that this sort of fascination with new telephones, for instance, or new whatever, that already in that fascination there's a kind of disgust with the product itself. You hate the phone already when you have it. Or maybe you love it for 1 second, and then you come out of the store and you already start hating it. You know, and after half a year you definitely hate it and think, you know, it's no good, and you want another one. So there's this kind of, this dynamics in itself is obviously quite destructive. Even if we would have the resources to keep this up, it makes nobody happy. It keeps people constantly unhappy, but in a kind of illusion of something new happening all the time. And that's already, I mean, that's a sign of being bored, right? That's when you want something new to happen all the time, because you can't stand the present, you can't stand yourself. So you want something new to happen all the time. And our whole culture now is built on that. Or take the power of television, I mean, which is also completely destructive, very, very strong. But I mean, for instance, if you put the Mona Lisa and a television screen showing the Mona Lisa between each other, everybody will look at the TV. So nobody wants even to look at reality. And that's our most powerful medium. So an analysis of this kind of sort of precisely this promise, so-called, of this civilization that we have would be essential, because if you start seeing what's involved in it, maybe if you really start seeing that, then its charm will be gone. But I mean, I'm not saying I have any good ideas of how to achieve this, but it seems obvious to me that a good critique already will be also a positive vision in a way.
No, I would just like to say that, as Ashish Bhai said, you know, Gandhi helps us to have many visions. And again, the visions of plurality also have their own problem. I would like to use what Dada Dharmadhikari uses, the term harmonious diversity. Not that in its complete term, but I feel comfortable with it. And second, it was very nice listening to Nicholas and his uneasiness and his sensitivity. And I think this is what Gandhi urges us to do. You know, Gandhi somewhere makes us ask uncomfortable questions, uneasy questions, that we have to find ourselves, and at least till that time he helps us. And then he leaves us to find answers on our own. And here also Gandhi gives a little hint that, you know, he believes in the great strength of experience. So much so that he says, Satyagraha also, I mean, you have to experience, live it. So this lived in life is very important. So even while we are talking about ethics and politics, we have to connect it with this lived in realities, because without that it doesn't lead anywhere. And again, what Ashish Bhai said about this Gandhians and Gandhi, and Gandhians being more Gandhian than Gandhi, and it somehow or other, it struck me that Vijayji had raised an issue, and we did not have much time to talk about that, you know, how after these leaders are gone, the followers deify them and are very comfortable with them, like what happened to Stalin or what happened to Gandhi. But I personally feel that what happened to Gandhi is that somewhere we missed out the importance he gave to what he called constructive work. In today's terminology, we may call social activism or whatever. Because I think political activity has kind of publicity, and again connecting it to television, and you are seen everywhere, you are known everywhere. If you win an election, lose an election, or say something in name of Gandhi or whoever leader, but if you work all your life in a village, you are sort of unknown, you are an unknown soldier. But I think that is what we need to give our attention to, because what is the importance, and how do we judge success or failure? And I think that becomes an important issue. Sorry.
I just
There will be need to comment. I think Vijay and Dhirubhai both want to comment on this.
Yeah.
1 second. I think
Oh, sorry.
I have
Usha.
asked, no, I have asked Usha to tell us who Dharmadhikari is.
Oh, sorry, I just quoted the opinion of Dada Dharmadhikari. He was an associate and I would say very fine commentator on Gandhi. Thank you.
So, is it? Joel has been waiting a long time, but I think that.
he's made an
I suppose. Okay, that's
small
right.
comment on
That's
that.
right. So, Dhirubhai and Vijay want to comment on Osha, no?
No, I am earlier on Nicholas.
So it's okay. So maybe Dhirubhai you chair still, because it seems I don't I don't know who's in the line.
You know,
My
there have
surprise
been
also.
many comments on Nicholas. It was very powerful, and the closest I would react, a part of it would be Thomas' reaction, how neoliberalism can be justified to help the last person. I want to share my comment also, because in one I feel in the intercultural dialogue, this is a very appropriate example. This is not individual Nicholas' reaction. There are other friends other than the ones sitting in this room. Although in this room, I recall Thomas about 20 years from now, once when he was describing the burden of a white male European, how the Japanese bomb and radioactivity all over and so on and so forth, wars. So that kind of burden on the conscience of a European male. But this reaction to this kind of people, that's a very typical, and I have found it many men and women activists, that they physically get rattled when they see this kind of poverty, and they also are intrigued why whom they consider sometimes even their inspirer of some good work, they don't even see it in quotes, and everything they are able to do as usual. So the Finns and the Nordics are very intrigued at our reaction, what kind of Gandhian or socialist we are, that we don't even notice them and we don't even react them, and where it gives them all kinds, total physical, emotional reaction. So that is another reaction, and this is more than one person, many or across generations also. So this, we the Indians should keep that in mind. That's one thing I felt the need to share. The other part I want to share is, there was a meeting about a fortnight ago on Let Nobody Should Sleep Hungry campaign. I can't name those friends because they are not here to defend. One of the friend, farmer, PhD from Delhi School of Economics, responsible for, as a couple, responsible for distribution of thousands of acres of land to Dalits in that district, but still, when acts as a farmer, is not able to feels the pinch of Manrega. Making Manrega is this government scheme of giving 100 rupees for 200 days to unemployed in the rural areas. So all the farmer, best of the sensitive, committed, dedicated people who have given up jobs of millions of per package per annum, and now they are doing full-time political work among peasants. They almost complainingly they don't talk about rural economy as an integrated unit. They talk about peasant and the crisis of peasants not getting labor. Why the hell Dalits should do labor on their field, and that should be facilitated by depriving them of any other job. So I'm so upset with this consistent, pervasive reaction by those, and I think there is caste system in it. And whenever we discuss Gandhi, we should remember that this man very effectively made the caste system much more porous than any other person in the recorded history. Kabir and Nanak and Buddha, probably more than any one of them. And there's total, what I said in the morning also, Gandhians totally oblivious of absolute means absolute oblivious of this question. Now the Gandhians. And such people, how this kind of total erosion, cultivated inability to look at the Dalits, which are a big percentage, 15%, then additional inability to look at the Adivasis. So this inability in Indian civilization is amazing, and it is only Gandhi's method and category, not the Gandhians, I want to emphasize, which can again open us to the normal minimalistic cognitive abilities to see the collective community called India. In that probably this kind of physical reaction which you had, people like cultures like yours can help us to rekindle our those cognitive abilities. M.N. Srinivas and Andre Bete, two of our leading sociologists, they agree that outsiders sometimes are needed to look at yourself critically. So that's one point I want to state in this intercultural dialogue on Gandhi. The other is, I was, my gurus, both Ashish Da and Dhirubhai, the way they reacted to Nicholas' thing, I felt a bit uncomfortable. Trying to classify, and even you said utilitarian political reductionist interpretations will not allow you to live that moral repugnance in a moral way. So I feel, before I make my point on this, I want to give another example very briefly. There's a friend, 2009, I said these are the candidates who will not win, who will not even save their deposits, and but they are fighting election to make a point about democratic socialism, Gandhian socialism. So please give donations for that, and not just give donations, mobilize some money for that. He's a very close and deep friend. When he was doing his anti-communal work, there was no others to take his money because it was brought from American Muslim Association. So it was only the socialists persuaded by Surenmohan and Dandavate that one organization put all that money there. So he started crying when I asked for donations. He said, Vijay, if you are such a close friend of mine, and if I start mobilizing money for a partisan political work, then I cannot help those dying, starving, hungry people. And I want to focus